Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video here. This is going to be one of many type of videos that we're going to do here at Gray Fox Games that are going to be talking about either titles that we are going to be coming out with soon, or titles that we did in the past, or in the case of this, a title that we printed in the past, but we've got an expansion coming out soon. And I asked the designers, Evan and Ryan here, to join me this evening as we're going to talk about After the Empire. Now, if you're not familiar with After the Empire is a worker placement tower defense game that Gray Fox has published. It had a successful Kickstarter campaign, and then it had a successful reprint drive on GameFound that added a solo variant to the game as well. And coming relatively soon, I'm not going to specify a time here, but we are going to have an expansion that's going to come out for After the Empire that's going to have a bunch of cool stuff. So this is kind of fun because both Evan and Ryan are friends. We see each other at conventions and whatever. We've had lots of interactions, but they've decided to join me, which was kind of both of you. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So so After the Empire, I don't want to dive too much into the history of this, but this was just a brainchild the two of you had because why?
Well,
Well,
it was Ryan's idea, so you start.
yeah, well, so basically, that was when I'd first gotten into heavier modern board gaming, playing a lot of like Agricola and not, though it's not as heavy, Galaxy Trucker at the same time. And I just kind of thought about what game I wanted to exist that didn't exist already. And I'd always been really into castle stuff and just kind of siege things as a whole. So I just came up with a worker placement like concept that I knew I wanted to have siege battles. And I said to my buddy Evan, which was right below us here, that would you like to join?
And
No.
I said yes,
And
and we did.
so and this was your first design, correct? I mean, this is like your
My
first
first, but not Evan's first.
okay.
Yeah.
Here's my second one.
Well, and Evan, okay, so but how do you guys know each other in the first place? Like as far as how, I mean, I don't need to know like the day you met kind of
Yeah.
thing, but I mean,
Ah, yes, I remember it was a Tuesday. No, we met waiting tables. Quickly figured out we were both nerds. Played Magic the Gathering, so forth, so on. Hang out, play games together for years and years and years.
and what did you design prior to that, Evan?
Well, it has still yet to be published because we launched. I think in 2014, it was a 9-minute Kickstarter video. Um, we tried to do a Kickstarter and it did not fund. But the video is something to behold. So it's a little family weight fishing game.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
And
it's fun.
what was the name of it? Out of curiosity.
If you're looking for the Kickstarter to watch that awesome video, it was called Big Fish River.
Big Fish River. I'll have to go check that out after this. Um, so now After the Empire,
Yes.
this was going to be something that the two of you were going to publish. And I
Yeah.
mean, and as a precursor, you had actually, this is back when I still was heavily doing my YouTube channel. You guys reached out to me and asked me to do a video for you for
Hmm.
that particular thing.
Yeah.
What changed your mind? Why didn't you publish it yourself? I mean, you Shane found you underneath a rock, and Shane is the owner of Gray Fox Games, or one of, I should say, one of the owners of Gray Fox Games. So how'd that go? How'd
That's
that
correct. I went to Geekway to the West. We were showing it in like the prototype alley or whatever, and Jane wandered by, saw the walls, and was like, "What the heck is this?" And we started chatting, and he was like, "Oh." So, because we were going to self-publish about like 3 or 4 months, or we were going to launch a Kickstarter like 3 or 4 months after that. And he was like, "Well, have you ever considered working with a publisher?" And I was like, "Nope." And he's like, "Well, would you consider working with a publisher?" And I was like, "Yep." And then we met and chatted with Josh Lobkovitz, who is amazing, and he was like, "This game's awesome," and Shane played it and was like, "This game sucks," and but Josh was able
Really?
to.
Shane said this game sucks.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, he hated it, but Josh was able to convince Shane that he should take a chance on it, and I think everybody is happy that he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, um, I still remember I wasn't working for Gray Fox Games yet, but I was at Gen Con, and and Shane and I became friends several years ago prior to ever working for Gray Fox. But and he was telling me about it. He was like, yeah, I mean, he was like, it's really engaging. It like it keeps you on your toes. The toy factor is high. You know, he had all these things, positive things, and like the Kickstarter was ongoing at that
Right.
time.
Oh
And I
yeah, I
remember
mean, you know, Shane though, he would never say a nice thing to my face.
no,
See, he
no,
has to tell me that he thinks it sucks, and then go say nice things to other people.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
The game gets published. The game comes out, and it was one of those things where, and this happens a lot in the board game world, where a game will come out and like a few people will back it, they'll play it, they'll say this is really awesome, but then all of a sudden there's like kind of an upswell of like certain reviewers or certain things. Like I think it was Tom Bassel at the Dice Tower, like had some
Yeah.
extremely positive things to say about it.
Yeah,
And
and the
it kind
Seal
of
of
got a life of
Excellence,
its
that was
own.
awesome.
And that's why we did the reprint campaign on GameFound, because basically we didn't have any more copies. People bought out everything that we had, and we didn't have any more to sell. So we were like, all right, well, you know, it is a relatively expensive game to manufacture because of all of the like. Because I mean, if you don't know it, I mean, theoretically, you can go to like Board Game Geek and look at the package, the pictures and what have you, or you can go to Gray Fox Games, you can look at it there. But I mean, you build a castle while you play, and you have these interlocking pieces of a castle, of walls and whatever. I mean, was that always going to be something you wanted in the game? Like you wanted to have walls and whatever? I mean, how did that come about, Ryan?
Yeah, that had been the plan from the start. We when we were going to self-publish, we had the idea that there'd be like a cheaper version that had maybe punch-out walls that were just made of particle board or something like that, and then we'd have the deluxe version, which had the plastic walls. And thankfully, one of the benefits of working with Gray Fox is that even the base game comes with the awesome wall pieces,
Right.
which is just we always wanted that as part of the game. We knew that the whole purpose of wanting to do this was to have a cool castle you're building, get to customize your castle, and having those walls just made it all the more tactile. And if you're going to be defending them, I always wanted to see them, and Evan was always on board with that too. So even our prototype, we had 3D printed walls in it, just because we always knew that was something we really wanted in there.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously now, I mean, like the game's obviously a success. I mean, like I know it's a success because I handled like the fulfillment and everything and everything else as far as that goes. And we had a very successful reprint campaign and original Kickstarter. So the expansion. I mean, do you have a name for it yet? I mean, I don't even know. Do we have a name for it at this point?
Not an official one, but we've been working with kind of like Manners and Knights or
Knights and Manners, yeah.
Knights and Manners, yeah.
Okay.
But no
Sounds
official
good.
title yet.
That's
Yeah.
Manners, right? Manners.
Not,
like,
not
Knights and
exactly.
Manners.
You do not have to be polite.
Please and thank you.
All right. Well, I literally know almost nothing about the expansion, other than a few card ideas and things like that. And I haven't yet because I'm the person that I get to play test the game after it's gotten to a certain point, and Josh springs it on me and gets my feedback, and then basically if it passes my weird gatekeeper section, then that's when I start blind play testing it with people like on our Discord. I don't know. Evan, you start. What's the coolest thing in your opinion that's being added with the Knights and Manners working title expansion?
Well, the coolest thing is a red herring because I think it's that we actually bolster the strategy of letting your farms burn down. But that's only like 2 cards.
So just so you see, people
hilarious.
are watching this. What's the point of this? So in the game, just mechanically, you have to create food to feed your soldiers, unless you have mercenaries, which you just pay them with gold. But if you have actual soldiers that are like your knights or whatever, you have to have food for them, or else you will. I think it's you lose points, right? You mean like
you start having to pay.
You actually have to pay the
pay
gold,
for the,
and you don't want to do that because gold is your victory points. And you have fields, but if the invaders come, they will burn the fields unless you protect them. So that's what Evan was referencing at this
Now,
point. But anyway, now that I've interrupted your flow,
the
you know,
correct answer, the real answer. I just love that you can let your farms burn, and there's a couple of cards that support that strategy. I think it's hilarious. But the real answer is we have new troop type called knights.
so
And
just
they,
soldiers, knights on
yeah,
horses.
they're mounted on horses, and they ride around and protect the farm, and they have bows, and they hit first because they're on horseback, and they ride around, and they are very, very effective troops in the combat. So you've got a new combat type, which is awesome, and then just we've kind of increased some of the choices in the worker placement. So there's raiding parties that kind of rotate around the board, and they block up certain action spaces. And you can still go to those actions. They're not fully blocked, but you have to send a knight or a couple of troops with your worker to, you know, protect them from this raiding party to go get the thing done. And when your troops are gone from your castle, you don't have to feed them, which that's nice. And maybe you need that because you're low on food, but also they won't be there to defend your castle in combat. So it's kind of like this extra, like, ooh, there's still a spot left to go get stone at the quarry, but I have to send a couple of troops with my guy. It's like it kind of doubles down on the push your luck aspect and makes the decision making of the worker placement also just a little bit extra.
So as long as Evan didn't steal your answer, Ryan, what's your coolest thing ever, or like the coolest thing ever that's being added to After the Empire that Evan didn't mention?
Yeah, raiding parties is probably the thing I was going to be mentioning with that, but what ties into that, more specifically, is that we are like really increasing the card quantity. Both of the decks are getting almost about 2/3 as many cards as are in the base game added in. And then we all have variable setups as to whether you just want to shuffle them together, probably, or do a setup to kind of make sure you get a nice full experience with the new card set. And so those things like the raiding party strategy. Evan didn't mention how the manors work, but basically building the manors, they go on top of your farm, and that is what generates most of the knights you have access to in the game, because the knight needs a manor to be a lord from. And so the cards we have weaved throughout are going to be supporting both those strategies. There's going to be cards that give you benefits for having extra manors. There's going to be cards that generate more knights or let you do cooler stuff with the knights. There's going to be cards that make it so these raiding party actions that Evan mentioned, which are normally somewhat prohibitive, but with this not feeding balance, actually give you extra benefit for going to. So not only are you perhaps trying to balance, do I keep these troops for combat or send them away? You're also going, well, but maybe that spot's even better for me in particular because I have a couple cards that support going to raiding party actions. So it ends up being this kind of like cards that really weave into the new mechanics that we're adding in. I think that's the really exciting part for me, is just the new divergent and diverse strategies that we've added in on top of all the strategies that already existed.
Plus, we peppered in just tons of new siege weapons and siege gears and a couple of extra, you know, invader types and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
And so the toy factor is still going to be there. All the cool stuff is just, is anything like mechanically changing from like obviously the new things like knights will probably like Evan mentioned, they're fast, they get to shoot their bows first, things like that. But I mean, as far as like the base gameplay, like if I played After the Empire and I know how After the Empire plays, moving on to the expansion, I mean, is it changing anything that I'm familiar with, or is it just kind of layering on top?
I would say the raiding party is the part that most changes what you're familiar with, because there is a rotating kind of tax on the board built in. So everything else is basically layering on top of that mechanic. But I would say that like you're forced to interact with some of them in those ways, whereas the knights and certain cards you could depending on what cards should have possibly stick with original mechanics. But definitely it ties in well with it. And last we heard, we might be doing a mini expansion as well. So that's still to be decided and in the works here, but there might be additional castle pieces that will be also something that will be hopefully part of this Kickstarter, and if not, maybe something down the line for the game as well. So
maybe even cooler bits for the
Yeah.
castles. Well, if not now, sometime later.
Yeah.
So, well,
Extra fun,
that's
shooty bits.
more shooty bits. Like you're not
More
gonna
fun,
like.
shooty, mole bits.
Do I get my old crossbows and catapults set that I had as a kid? And
You could get catapults on top of your towers. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds
The
awesome.
ballista.
Oh,
Everybody's
well,
always like, where's the moat? And it's like, well, you gotta wait.
I hear that. I mean, people are like, why don't I have a moat? Why don't I have, just like some sludgy pit of water that people can fall into and come what may. So,
Delicious.
yeah, amazing. Well, if you want to check out After the Empire, like I said, there you can go to greatfoxgames.com, take a look at there. And I believe we still have, like I said, we still have copies available. So if this has piqued your interest, if you want to make sure you get that the earlier game, and I do believe that we do still have the deluxe copies for sale on our website, so you can go check that out. I don't know, any other comments about the design or anything I didn't touch that I think that you want to mention?
Yeah.
We've
we're
been
really
having a blast. Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
we're really excited for the expansion to come. We've been thinking about it, working on it for quite a while. And hopefully people dig it, because if you do and you keep supporting the game, we have a lot more ideas and we would be happy to get them out there for you.
All right, awesome.
So many spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with Great Fox Games, please hit that old like, subscribe, you know the drill. And Evan, Ryan, thanks so much for taking the time to have this little chat.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for having
Thanks for
us.
chatting with us.